Hello, friends. Happy Monday and welcome back to Elaborations with Skellington Grin. If you are new here, my name is Ava and I am your gothic witch big sis on this magical, messy, beautiful journey that we call life. And here on EWSG, we talk about spirituality, spiritual science, medical science, and how we can use both cosmic and environmental wisdom to better understand ourselves, mind, body, and soul. But before we get into today's episode, I want to give a quick explanation and apology for why we only had one episode last week. So if you tuned in last week, we talked about the magic of cycles, how the seasons outside mirror the seasons within us, and how tuning into the moon phases and the wheel of the year and our internal energy patterns can help us find more ease and alignment as we go through our lives. And all of the waxing and waning references that I had in last week's episode were totally intentional. And I think I even touched on a little bit about what I'm going to be diving into today. But last week, technology wound up humbling me because I lost a couple of scripts, I lost some pre-recorded audio materials, and YouTube was giving me the runaround on uploading the still image video portion of this that I upload to YouTube for people who would rather tune in through YouTube instead of tuning in through Spotify or Apple. But instead of spiraling, which was so very tempting because, sometimes we just got to have our little spiral moment and that is okay. I decided to choose peace and I ran with and posted what I could. And sometimes, even as a creator who has been doing this for a while and had a whole system and had this whole rhythm and is coming back to figuring out a new rhythm in a new season, sometimes that's all we can do is roll with what we got. And that's enough. It really is enough. And sometimes we need to just pat ourselves on the back and say, look, you did good. You did good with what you had, and that's good enough. And sometimes good enough just needs to be good enough. But today it is Monday, October 13th, and we are officially back and coming in strong. And because it is October 13th, I want to give a little bonus joy for my fellow spooky peoples who are tuning in because today is also the 32nd anniversary of The Nightmare Before Christmas. And if you know me well and you've been tuning into my Instagram, you've been seeing me use my Nightmare Before Christmas tarot deck for the semi-daily tarot readings that I've been doing this month. And I'm probably, like I said, going to be using that all the way until the end of December because hello. Why not? If people can celebrate Nightmare Before Christmas and Disney can celebrate Nightmare Before Christmas from the middle of August to the beginning of January, so can I. So can I. And yes, I do know Disney's schedule like the back of my hand with that because I grew up as a Disney kid. I went to Disney World so many times in my life. And I actually did go to Disneyland a lot. And that was when they used to do all of the decorations at Disneyland. So yeah, I know that time clock pretty well. And I also have a habit of having so much knowledge in my brain of so many different things at once. But that's just me. Now, without any further ado, I invite you to grab your favorite drink and maybe some of your favorite snacks. If it's the end of the day for you, get a little cozy, get a little intentional. And if you are listening to this either in the office with your office friends or you are listening to this on your way driving to or from work or from running errands, I hope you're driving safely, and I hope that your office friends are also like, hey, this girl knows what she's talking about. So let's dive right into today's episode. So, for today, we're going to be continuing last week's theme, the magic of cycles. But today, we are zooming in a little bit further, and we are going to be talking about the menstrual cycle, the real, raw, sacred menstrual cycle. So, this episode is especially for those of you with uteruses and for those who love, support, or simply want to better understand people who menstruate. And the reason we're talking about this is because it is so imperative that we understand this as something cyclical when it comes to menstruating. And I'm not trying to talk about this in like this gross way or anything like that. I want us to be more comfortable with what it actually means in our bodies when it happens, not just the external part of it, but the internal part. What do our bodies go through? What does the pain actually register like when we are experiencing cramps and migraines and body aches? Some of us even get hot flashes. I know I get hot flashes and night sweats. So, the reason I want to talk about this is because it's relevant to what I was talking about last week, and it's also relevant for so many of us who experience this. And here's the big thing. The moon waxes and wanes. The tides rise and fall. The leaves on the trees change color and fall off, unless it's an evergreen tree. So if nature can have its own cycles, and nature is not always expected to run on the same cycle 24/7, why are we? So let's first get into the science of this, while also staying grounded in our magic. Several studies have come out over the past few decades alone that have helped us to understand this a little bit better. And I will be posting the links to my sources in the description box if you would like to check these out. But the first thing that I want to say is this. People with higher testosterone levels, often those who are assigned male at birth, tend to move through a 24-hour hormonal cycle. Testosterone is going to peak in the early morning around 7 to 10 a.m. and is going to drop off in the evening. And that means that their energy, focus, and productivity levels typically reset each day like clockwork. And they know, they feel it within themselves. But for people with a uterus, rhythms are going to move on multiple levels. We still experience what is called circadian rhythms, meaning our hormones still fluctuate throughout a 24-hour period. And a study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism confirmed that hormones like estradiol and progesterone do show daily patterns, especially during the first half of the monthly cycle. But people with uteruses also move through a broader monthly rhythm, which is usually 28 to 35 days long. And this cycle is going to affect not just the reproductive system, but the entire physiology of a person with a uterus, from their metabolic rates and metabolic function to brain functioning. And it's so imperative that we look at it from this perspective of what is it actually doing to our bodies, okay? And in one metabolomic study of 34 healthy menstruating women, over 200 biochemical markers in the blood were found to significantly change depending on where a person was in their menstrual cycle. And this means that our energy, our ability to metabolize things, our hydration, and even how our bodies process nutrients are going to shift week by week and phase by phase of the cycle. That's why when working with a nutritionist, especially, or a dietitian, we are told to sometimes eat specific things that are going to contribute to more of a production of certain things or are going to help stabilize certain biochemical reactions in our bodies. For example, if we understand that we lose a lot of iron and we can be a little bit low on iron during that menstrual phase, we may be told to maybe incorporate some beets into our diet. Or maybe if we are meat eaters, incorporating a little bit of red meat into our diet during that week so that we can have some iron-rich meals. And there are going to be other times, such as during the follicular phase, which is considered the internal spring, where we have a little bit more energy, we're going to be told to maybe supplement that energy with things like kale and chickpeas and different things that are going to be a little bit more energy boosting as opposed to rest inducing. Okay. And that's the way that I like to look at it. And of course, there's more science that you can find on this. And there are so many articles. It's abundant out there. And I love how abundant it is that we are getting this information nowadays. But let me go ahead and continue before going off on a whole tangent, okay? Because this episode alone is a tangent in and of itself. We don't need tangents within tangents. Otherwise, we're going to have tangentception. But when we are learning about all of this, we are learning throughout our cycles, for those of us who menstruate, that our brains physically change during that cycle. Researchers at the Max Planck Institute found that areas of the brain responsible for memory and emotion, such as the hippocampus, literally change shape in response to hormonal fluctuations. And just like people with uteruses experience monthly testosterone fluctuations, because we do, they peak around ovulation and drop during the luteal phase, our sleep and wake cycles and alertness can also shift. A recent 2024 study using wearables found that sleep quality and rhythms were strongly linked to menstrual phases. So for those of you who are tuning in, who also experience the menstrual phase and have a uterus, if you are feeling different from week to week, you're not imagining anything. You're not being dramatic. Your body is literally shifting on cellular and hormonal levels every single week. So I invite you to be a little bit more tender with yourself while you are recognizing that, and go ahead and honor it. It may not make sense. Other people are going to maybe even try to come at you sideways about it. But what you need to do is sometimes lay sideways on the couch and say, I need a little bit of a rest. And let that be okay. So let me bring this into real life and my personal lived experience for a second. For me personally, the luteal phase, which is usually the 7 to 10 days before the menstrual phase starts, is that time of deep retreat. It is considered that kind of like hibernation phase before that internal winter. I go inward, I might cancel plans, I might do less because my body starts whispering, hey, we need to get ready to power down. And then when my menstrual phase arrives, which is usually about a week for me, that is my sacred pause, that is my sacred rest. I'll start saying no unapologetically. I will give myself permission to rest, and I will make space for whatever comes. Because for me, it's cramps, it's hot flashes, it's night sweats, it's mood swings. And, it is also really, really bad migraines. And sometimes I will even wake up in the middle of the night in so much body pain in so many parts of my body. I've even woken up at 2:00 in the morning with everything hurting, and my partner was laying next to me, and he woke up because he heard me in pain. And I said, baby, I am sorry that I am waking you up in the middle of the night like this, but would you mind getting up and getting me some cold water and some club crackers? And you know what he did? Got me the cold water and the club crackers and fed them to me in bed. And that's just one example of like how it can be for those of us who really do experience really bad pains. And I've even known people who deal with endometriosis and polycystic ovarian syndrome, which makes it even more painful and even sometimes more stressful when they are dealing with their menstrual cycle, because their pain is going to radiate off of the seismic charts compared to what I'm dealing with. Okay. And all of that to say, this isn't just about feeling tired. It isn't just about not wanting to do anything. It isn't just about being able to take a couple of pain pills and get through it and just kind of like soldier through it. Sometimes we need that full body reset because we're dealing with uterine contractions that feel like mini labor. We're dealing with hormonal drop-offs and migraines and bloating and so many mood shifts. And we're often still expected to show up like nothing is happening. And that disconnect is part of why this entire conversation truly matters. So, if you are looking for tips and tools, whether you are helping out a friend or family member who lives with this, or you are helping out your partner and you're wanting to understand them a little bit better, or you are simply wanting to help yourself out a little bit better because you are a person who has a uterus and you are a person who goes through this hormonal cycle, here are a few things that I have really looked into that help me to manage my cycle in ways that feel loving and sustainable, even when my mood swings faster than a mood ring. The first thing is make sure that you are hydrating as much as you can. For me, I drink water more often, and sometimes I add a little bit of sea salt and lemon to support electrolyte balance. If you can't get something like Gatorade or Powerade, which can help with electrolyte balance and is sometimes one of the cheaper options when you're looking for any kind of electrolyte supplement, quote unquote, to put into your drink, or you are struggling with finding liquid IV because some stores don't carry it in plentiful quantities and some stores carry the knockoff version and it's not going to work half as well, or simply it can be a little bit on the pricier side. I highly recommend, if you have a little bit of sea salt or even just regular table salt if you can't get sea salt, and you're able to get a little bit of lemon into your water and maybe even some cucumber, I highly recommend using that to support electrolyte balance and get a little bit more of that hydration. Iron support. Like I was mentioning before, eating more iron-rich foods or taking a gentle supplement if your energy is crashing. And like I was saying, sometimes during that menstrual week, you might be recommended to eat something like beets that are very rich in iron. Other things that are going to be a little bit rich in iron are going to be things like leafy greens, kale, spinach, even mustard greens and collard greens. Even if you want to cook them down a little bit, having that nutrient balance. I do recommend, and this is just me personally, if you are going to eat kale and spinach during that week, to maybe try to eat it raw, but it's not going to deplete the nutritional value if you were to cook it, okay? And if you are a meat consumer, eating a little bit of red meat as much as you can stomach. And I say as much as you can stomach because sometimes the red meat, especially if it is a little bit fattier, is going to cause a little bit more of the pain spikes. At least it does for me. But having that iron from that heme within the meat can sometimes help with iron replenishment. Magnesium, which is a total lifesaver for body aches, mood swings, and even sleep. And I would personally recommend, now I definitely listen to a doctor or a physician or a dietitian or nutritionist if you can. Don't just take my word for this, but I would personally recommend taking magnesium at night. And the reason I say that is because magnesium can actually help with sleep. And I have found that magnesium taken at night can help with sleep a lot better, even than taking melatonin, if you are having troubles and difficulty with sleeping during your menstrual cycle. Dark chocolate. Now, this one's going to be a little bit of a point of contention. Some people are going to say, ew, I hate the taste. It's so bitter. Other people are going to say, ooh, I really love it. But chocolate? Really? Yes. There are so many studies out there that have linked the consumption of dark chocolate because of the different aspects of the chocolate, because of the fact that it's not so overprocessed, because of the fact that it's not extracting too much of or not extracting, I should say. You're not adding too much to it to make it too sweet. You're not adding too much to it to take away the properties of the cacao or the cocoa. You are simply eating something that is a little bit more of that cocoa base than you are eating something that's a little bit more sweet and more like candy. But dark chocolate really is medicine because it is rich in magnesium, and it can be also very soothing because if you are getting 70 to 72% dark chocolate, that's kind of the sweet spot. If you go any lower than that, with the percentage of dark chocolate, you're kind of going more into that almost milk chocolate kind of flavoring and that profiling of milk chocolate. And it's going to be more like candy than it is going to be kind of like a little bit of a sweet treat. But if you're going for 70 to 72% dark chocolate, that is the sweet spot. And I know I've said sweet a little bit, a bit, but that is where it's still going to have just that little itty bitty bit that's going to satisfy that craving for sugar without necessarily throwing you into more of this sugar hyperdrive. And it's still going to be rich in magnesium that is going to, again, help with sleep. Now, if you're one of those people who is a little bit wary about having chocolate before bed, I wouldn't necessarily recommend having it before bed. Or if you do, maybe make your cutoff of eating any kind of sweet treat. Make that cutoff somewhere between 2 to 3 hours. You don't have to always do 4. Some people are going to recommend 4 hours of cutoff before bedtime between eating something and then going to bed. But sometimes all you really need is that 2 to 3 hour window and you should be golden. But definitely just listen to your body on this. Listen to your own intuition and listen to how it feels in your body when you eat something a little bit later at night. Even if it is dark chocolate that can help and can be rich in magnesium, you still want to listen to your body over listen to somebody else's suggestions, okay? Gentle movement, things like yin yoga, stretching, walks, something that's not forced, but something that gets your body moving can absolutely help with some of that pain in your body that you're going to be experiencing. Now, it's going to be different for every body because every body is different. But I find that the more gentle the movement, the more your body is going to feel relaxed while also feeling like it can manage itself. Okay. And having that gentle movement is also going to help with your metabolism during the different cycles, during the different phases of your cycle, especially having that gentle movement when you're starting to slow down during that luteal phase leading up to the menstrual phase. Your body is still going to want that movement. Your body is still going to need that movement. And especially if you are active throughout the rest of the month, keeping that activity, keeping that consistency is so key to managing your hormones and managing your pain and managing your nutrition, and so much more. Okay. And above all, the last thing that I recommend is giving yourself permission to exist in whatever you're feeling, permission to cancel plans, permission to not be productive, permission to rest without guilt, and permission to just be, whatever that's going to look like for you during whatever phase of that cycle. And one of the most powerful lessons that I've learned from working with my cycle is this: saying no is so sacred. Because the world teaches us to keep going and to be productive. And the world says we should be like an Energizer bunny every single day within a 24-hour time span. But nature is going to teach us to pause. Unless they're evergreen trees, trees don't stay green all year. Flowers and other plants are not going to stay blooming and blossoming all year. The moon doesn't shine full every single night. So you don't need to be on all the time to be worthy or to be seen as a valued member of society. Because productivity isn't just about the doing. It's also about knowing when to give yourself that time to rest. Because the luteal and menstrual phases are your inner autumn and winter. They are the exhale and the pause between the breaths and the heartbeats and the energetic levels of the cycle. And speaking of nature, as I was recording this, I had to stop and pause for a minute because there was chittering activity outside my window from the birds and squirrels and everything like that. And it sounded so close to my window. There was a crow cawing. And I'm like, hey friend, how you doing? I love the crows in my neighborhood that like to fly around, because some of them will even land in my yard. And what I like to do, especially during this time of the year, is I like to throw my apple cores and other pieces of fruit outside and let them eat off of it. But going back to wrapping up this episode a little bit. If you do not menstruate, this still applies to you, because we all have our seasons in our lives and our moods and our minds. We're not going to be the same every day, week, month, or even during the year. And yes, that was a Friends reference, and I will make them until the day that I die. One of my favorite shows ever. But recognizing when you are in a low energy phase and honoring that is so revolutionary and healing, even if you are more masculinely inclined and you have more testosterone being produced in your body and you have that 24-hour hormone cycle. It's still important to recognize when you are low energy, and when you need that time for rest, when you need that time for you, when you need that time to decompress and de-stress before you do it all over again tomorrow. So wherever you are in your cycle or in your body or even in your own personal season, as you are growing and changing as a person, I want you to know that your rhythm is real. Your flow is sacred, and you are allowed to move at the speed of your body, not the speed of the world or someone else's world that they are placing you in a role within. This episode is about more than just the hormones. It's about rewriting the story and unlearning that hustle culture so that you can choose something softer, wiser, and more aligned. You are like the moon. You are like the tides. You are like the earth. You are like nature. You are one with nature because you are a human being. And human beings are still one with nature. And we can get into a whole topic of how nature shows up in us, in our bodies, in our thumbprints, in our DNA. But that's an episode for another time. And as always, thank you so much for being here and letting me share this sacred space with you and allowing me to hop on the mic every single day and inform you and educate you about these different things, and also take you on so many different journeys throughout the month. If today's episode resonated with you, I would love for you to share it with someone who needs a little bit more permission to rest, whether they menstruate or not. Let's start normalizing these conversations together. And if you're following me on Instagram, feel free to share the episode in your story and tag me in it, because I would love to hear what you got out of it and how you're liking it. And I love seeing that little bit of people sharing it with other people. It really means the world to me. And if you would like to connect with me and you have not already, tune into my little description box where you can find all of my social media handles and my website and everything else connected to Skellington Grin. And as always, stay grounded, stay magical, and take care of your beautiful, brilliant body. Until next time, blessed be. This has been another enlightening episode of Elaborations with Skellington Grin, and I can't wait to see you again. Bye.